We didn't have any plans, we had no supplies, no equipment, no money, and all we had was an idea.
Call it the little engine that could. Now celebrating a half-century of operation, the little train in Wintersmith Park just keeps rolling down the track. It's been a hit with kids of all ages from day one, and its popularity shows no signs of slowing down.
A lot of kids like trains, and sometimes we'll have kids get on the train and parents will have to almost take them off kicking and screaming, and even after 3 or 4 times around. And it's not a thrill ride, it's just a kind of a fun thing to do. It's been around quite a while here in Ada. We're talking 50 years. And so a lot of times when I'm running the train or others will be running the trains, we may have a grandparent or parent with their children, and they'll say, you know, I rode this train when I was little.
The little train has carried tens of thousands of people on a scenic tour of Wintersmith Park's north side. But the whistle would have never blown without the vision and elbow grease provided by the Kiwanis Club of Greater Ada, also marking its 50th year of existence.
We thought about buying a train, and I think the first one we priced was $15,000, and no way.
So I said, okay, we'll just build it then. Why or how or where, nobody knew, but anyway, it happened.
15 of us put $100 a piece in a pot, and got enough nickels and dimes to go to work, and contributors came out of the woodwork.
No member of the Kiwanis Club had any experience building a train. The men who tackled the project took a quantum leap of faith that as a group, they could succeed, no matter how difficult it turned out to be. The first step was to build an engine.
I drew the plans actually for the first engine, and then Gene Evans did all the body work, all the metal work for that engine. Of course, we had some help. I don't mean we did it by ourselves. It's just that we were kind of the guys that knew what to do with metal.
As far as the shape of the engine is concerned, Clyde Altag, who was a member, he was a model train buff, and he had a model train, and he brought me an engine this shape, and we used it as the defining shape and dimensions in order to get it right. Denny and his chief mechanic, so they started building a framework for it, basically so that it would fit the equipment that's going to be mounted inside. The dome part of the front is the nose off of a 40 Buick automobile hood, and we cut it out of there and used it on the front, altered it a little bit, and the headlight was off of a 38 Chevrolet. So it was just cobbled together from anything we could get our hands on.
As the engine chassis started to take shape, the project gathered steam. Gene Evans fabricated 3 passenger coaches for the little engine to pull. Halliburton donated a 50-horsepower gasoline motor for the little train. Phillips Petroleum donated some rail for the track. Spikes were obtained from Colorado Fuel and Iron Works. The Oklahoma City, Atoka, and Ada Railroad had ceased service to Ada by 1958 and saw fit to donate some railroad ties, which club members had to cut into thirds to fit the small gauge track. Exactly where that track would be installed was an adventure all its own.
We started right here at the house, concession stand, said, okay, let's go south and bring it on back around and come back to where the starting point is and go just as far as you can for the track that we've got. We've got the engine out here one night, about 8 o'clock at night time we got it out here, and we had a lot of questions about whether it'd make the turns or whether it would pull the hills. And in the process going around, we jumped the track 8 times and going around. We found out then that the level and the gauge of the track was very important, so the next week or 2 we're straightening up the track, getting it back in shape.
Creating a train and a miniature railroad from scratch proved to be very hard work, and the project extracted a significant amount of sweat equity from determined club members.
There was no box blade, there was no front end loader, and in fact the most modern piece of equipment we had was a chainsaw, because they had just come out at that time, and we found out they wouldn't work because the rocks in the ties dulled the blade too quick.
If I look at our club now, we've got a few members that have some skills and knowledge in mechanical areas, but maybe 50 years ago there were more people that had the types of skills that it took to do that. But even then, to just come up with a concept and without any plans to put together a train and lay the track, not knowing anything about it. It's pretty amazing.
To complicate the train project further, Wintersmith Park was almost completely undeveloped. The Civilian Conservation Corps had built some narrow dirt roads in the area, but 50 years ago, the park was not anywhere close to the attraction it has become.
Well, you wouldn't recognize it because at that time is right after the war, and it hadn't been used, nothing had been done. Weeds were about waist high to chest high, but it was a wilderness area and had been neglected from the time the war started in 42 until, well, frankly, we came down here in 58. And of course, the city took over then after a few years, and a little money started coming in. And of course, they're doing a wonderful job of keeping it up now.
Finally, one warm July afternoon in 1958, the little train opened for business. Ada's response was overwhelming. The train carried more than 1,000 passengers on its first day. A ticket good for 8 rides sold for $1. Snow cones were made from 300 pounds of block ice that day. The Kiwanis Fun Park was born.
The club wrote us promissory notes. And a year to date after this thing went into service, the club treasurer brought us checks for our money. All 15 of us got our money back. It was marvelous. It was great.
The Kiwanis Club of Greater Ada took advantage of the momentum created by the little train and quickly expanded its fun park. Within 5 years, a carousel was purchased and installed, and a miniature golf course was constructed. These projects were made possible with the revenue generated by train rides.
The merry-go-round, it was a canvas tent that enclosed the unit, and later, of course, we added the concrete floor and the roof on top of it. And it's been sitting right here for 50 years now, or 49 at this point. It's actually built in about 37. The golf course came along about 4 or 5 years later. We were still looking for a little something to do and generate a little money. And John Oxford had been off somewhere and had seen one, and it struck him that that would work down here. And he brought the idea back, and so we built the golf course. One of the things that's obvious down here are these pavilions, because the Kiwanis Club built most of these, if not all of these pavilions down here with the proceeds generated here at the park.
The little engine, modeled after a toy train and built by the hands of founding club members, chugged along for more than 25 years. It was retired in the 1980s and replaced with an engine that, ironically, is as old as the original. Like the original, it requires a lot of attention.
The one that we're currently running, it's my understanding that was built by someone down in the Sulphur area and ran at Turner Falls for a number of years, and then was caught up in a flood or washed down the creek, and then our club bought it and kind of rebuilt it. The cars that we're running are actually original cars. They were cars that were built by the club, but the wheels wear and the bearings get old, and we've probably put about $2,500 a piece in each one of the cars over the last 2 years just to keep them running. Every year we've got to go around and check the track and replace ties or spikes and do that type of thing.
Ada is lucky to have its miniature train, an attraction of which very few communities of any size can boast. All involved agree that it wouldn't be here without the continued support of Ada's civic clubs.
They're able to fulfill a need for the community, and then they fulfill a need for the members, because the members that belong to a service club, they want to do something. They don't have the ability or the connections or the time to do much themselves, but when you get them all together, you can get a whole lot done.
I don't know that everybody that comes down here understands that this is operated by a group of volunteers. Without those volunteers, there's not the organization here to do it.
For now, the little train rolls on. 50 years later, it still brings smiles to the faces of its many passengers, not to mention those who first got it on track.
Being a part of something that's successful is always a good feeling. and this one in particular. After we got it built, of course, we were very pleased, but whether it would run for a year or 50 years was, in fact, I started to say it was anybody's guess, but really it wasn't even considered. In fact, I guess after it started, we thought it was perpetual motion. It'd go on forever, and maybe it will.